Great. I believe that we are live. So thank you everyone for joining another episode of the Cross Project Council meeting. Part of the OpenJS Foundation. Today is the 25th of July in 2023. Pop my little comment here on the live stream and get things going. How about we start with any announcements?
Kylie, you want to run through the upcoming?
Yes, I do. We have a ton of events coming up in the fall. So notably, we have Open Source Summit Europe. So we'll be having OpenJS World there, just like we did in Vancouver. So in case you missed the Vancouver one, find us in Spain. The dates on that are September 19th through the 21st in Bilbao, Spain. The day before the conference, we'll be doing a Node Collaborator Summit on the 18th. So we're working on getting the registration up for that now. We're hoping it'll be up this week, and we will put all those details on the Node.js social handles. So you can register for that. It is a separate registration from OpenJS World. So if you don't want to attend that, you can only attend the Collaborator Summit. So that's coming up. And then we also have a couple other events. We have the OpenViz Collaborator Summit. That is happening in New York on September 6th through 7th, I believe. And we are going to announce speakers for that really soon. So you'll be able to check out that agenda. And then, sorry, this is a lot of events, but we're also doing Open Source Summit China. That is the week after Open Source Summit EU. And we'll be there doing OpenJS World China. We're finalizing details on that, so more to come on details, but for now, save the date. I think those are all the big ones. Robin, pop it to you in case you want to add anything.
Yeah, we're doing OpenJS in finance at the open source, finance forum with the Finos group from the Linux Foundation. That's November 1st in New York. We did that last year. It was quite popular. So,
yep.
And near term, we have a standards working group following this hour. So you're all welcome to attend.
Yeah. And as a reminder too, we meet every Monday for the Security Collab Space, 2 p.m. Eastern time, if I remember correctly, but it's in the calendar. So folks for that. I'm curious, have we introduced Julian CPC call?
Oh, I think we did maybe in other meetings. Super excited to welcome Julian Suarez to the team at OpenJS Foundation. He is our new program coordinator and will be helping on all things OpenJS, OpenViz, security.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. I'm trying to get off the profile pic, but it doesn't want to work with me, of course, but that is what I look like, I promise. So I'm happy to be here though and working with everybody.
Great. Welcome. We're so delighted. Yeah.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
That looks a bit photoshopped though. I mean, just saying.
I know Rich has me beat though. I think I'm gonna take another picture here.
Verb.
I don't know. I think yeah, I'm gonna just stop.
Okay.
Cool. Any other announcements before we move on to the next section? Nope. How about board meeting updates? I know we've got some private time later, but anything we want to share here from the board?
No, we had a board meeting last Friday. Again, usually third Friday of the month, unless we're face-to-face at an event. So it was summer, so more of a progress report than any big new developments, but always great to engage. We have a lot of our board folks who work in a lot of our program committees and things like that. So it's always good to get their feedback.
Cool. Cool. Let's get into the agenda. I'll start. The first item here is issue 1122, Code of Conduct Plan of Action. We had a great working group meeting last week. and out of that, built out this plan of action. And it looks like, Toby, maybe you even expanded upon it a bit here. So I don't know if you want to, go over this really quickly or.
Yeah, sure. I looked at so I had labeled all of the related pull requests and issues a while back. And I pulled all of them in that document now. So essentially everything that is related to the code of conduct is there. Yeah, whenever there were like task lists or things like this, I just looped them in.
Cool. This is
I
really,
just,
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I think I was gonna say what you're gonna say, Joe, which is this is really awesome. It makes it really clear what the tasks are ahead of us, and really appreciate you getting this together. And yeah, if there's anything that needs to be assigned out, so it's not just you guys, I'm happy to jump in on one of these if you need help.
Cool. Yeah, feel free to look through if there's anything that you
Yeah,
want to help
I'll
with.
do that.
Reach out to the person or jump in. However, yeah, and this is super helpful. We had like kind of the high level list, and then Toby went through and broke it down a bunch and grabbed all the issues and stuff. It's really super helpful.
I mean, I don't want to take like too much extra credit for this. Like the session was great. This is like, there's been a lot of work coming to that point, a lot of like discussions and agreement. And so, that's just essentially that written down. And most of that work was done during the session. So it's just.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I pasted something in the chat that's probably really confusing. Let me paste. I was pasting the minutes there. That's what I meant to paste. Cool. Yeah, so this is really helpful. I actually was going to try to get some of the things that are assigned to me done this morning, but I got pulled into some work related stuff. But I'll try to do the first bullet there, the removing the automation this afternoon after the standards meeting. And I would love if we can, just keep some focus on this and some progress, because a lot of this stuff has been going on for a long time, but I feel like we're really near the end. We have kind of a plan. As long as we act while it's fresh, I think we'll make some real great progress here and get everything in place, which, obviously the stuff is super important. So great. Any help anyone wants to jump in is super appreciated. Any questions or comments or thoughts or anything?
Actually, I just really quickly want to just mention something about this. There's been some churn around some of these, around the open pull requests around this, thanks to another pull request that Jordan made of cleaning sort of like the whole repo up. And so there's no need to worry about some of the old pull requests. There's like no point in commenting back into those, because we're gonna like wrap everything up and like have some new stuff coming out of like the work that's planned. And so if there was any sort of change in an old pull request, it's like not something we're necessarily going to go with. So there's no point in having conversations in those.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So if you do go through this and look through this, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to myself, Toby, Robin, Jordan. A handful of us and Ben as well. We're trying to work through this and have been for a while. So some things might not be obvious in certain issues or pull requests that may be solved elsewhere. Our goal is to get this all cleaned up, and then we can assess any other changes that we want to make, or conversely, as we make like new pull requests to land documentation of how we've kind of envisioned some of these things, some of the process and the shape of things, we can comment there. But let's try to leave old stuff old, or reach out to us if you have any questions about it. So yeah, this is actually really exciting. I'm really hopeful that we can get a lot of this stuff landed over the next few weeks and really feel like we're moving forward in a positive way. Cool. I will move on. unless anybody has any questions. The next item on the agenda is standardize on collab spaces over working groups. Toby gave a really good comment here last month about kind of the differences. I don't know if we want to have like a working group where we kind of work through this, even the question of whether we should have both or not. I mean, I'm leaning towards not, trying to simplify and figure out, where the differences are, and then how do we remedy those differences in a more simple fashion, I guess. Any thoughts or comments or questions?
So I don't super remember the context of this.
It was me.
No, but I mean, I remember that we like got this conversation started, and then I remember that sort of like broke it down, and there's a whole list of to-dos to do in there. And it starts with a whole bunch of decisions that the CPC has to make. And so if we want to move forward with this, then we should actually, explain what this is about, and then go through those CPC decisions and like make those decisions, and then move on. If I remember, essentially what we have is we have two things, collab spaces and working groups, that are incredibly similar, except in one instance, there is a delegation of power that is made by the CPC to the whatever the name is of the group, and in the other instance there isn't. And my understanding is that's essentially the only thing that differs. And so I think that the suggestion that we came up with when we talked about this was it should be part of the charter of the group, whether or not they have decision-making power over the area that the group is discussing. And then this would essentially allow us to have the same, except some would have decision-making power and some wouldn't, right? And if if everyone's happy with this plan, then that implies like a bunch of things, which is essentially the CPC agreeing about this and making those decisions. And then as a second step, just like letting the board know about this for the sake of being, out of courtesy, really, because there technically like no CPC charter update about this, I think, and barely, no bylaws changes. And then essentially, updating the documentation, updating the charters of existing collab spaces, migrating the working groups to collab spaces, and then removing all of the working group documentation. I mean, it's a significant amount of work. It's not massive, and it might help simplify things. So I guess, we want to sort of like see if we want to go down that route, who wants to do the work. And then if we do want to go there, start making those decisions.
From a governance perspective, I don't remember having that deliberate working group that has decision-making, collab space doesn't. And Michael, maybe you can help refresh our memories when we created the collab space concept. Because theoretically, the security collab space will make decisions, right? So,
right. Well, the working group was inherited from the node governance, and it is intended as a, like, the CPC is actually delegated responsibility, and we're tending to use that less and less in the node project itself. And like, the actual formal delegation isn't really necessary in most cases. Versus the collaboration space was like the working group in my mind was like, we've got people, they're already in the project, they want to get together and do something. The collaboration space was meant to be much more open in that, like, there might even be people that don't come to CPC meetings, they're not CPC members, maybe they're not even project members, but they want to collaborate on something that is not a project. Like, instead of proposing a project to join, they want to collaborate on a particular topic. And so we've given them responsibility for something, but we're giving them space and resources to let that collaboration take place. So it really comes back to, do we believe that the formal delegation of responsibility is something we need and want to maintain, and to be able to say, yeah, okay, this is actually a working group because it's got this formal delegation of responsibility. That would be my difference in my mind. Otherwise, if you don't want that, then the collaboration space should be able to cover any kind of collaboration, right?
Yeah, and Toby's got their hand up. I just want to say really quickly, like the standards working group is a good example in our space because, you know, they sort of are delegated to represent the OpenJS Foundation in different standards bodies. So that's kind of an interesting distinction that we have here. But anyway, go, Toby.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just wanted to clarify that I don't really have an opinion about like what we should do. Like, there's just like looking at the, you know, sort of what the two things are. The only thing that jumps from the documentation, right, as there being a distinction between the two, is essentially the delegation of power thing. Like the rest of it is just kind of the same kind of language and describes kind of the same kind of like, there's no, you can't say, hey, this is a working group and hey, this should be a collab space from the documentation. That's really like that's the only thing there is to it. And you know, I agree with some of the comments that made like, you know, what Rich is saying, like you know, sure, like people do come back, you know, do come back to I mean, it would make sense to come back to the CPC if there's like a big decision to be made in any case, right? So I mean, I don't essentially like sorry, this is a bit like long and windy, but the point I'm making is there was clearly like different history to these things, and they certainly make sense as different things, and we can keep them as such. But if you just look at the doc, they're very similar. And essentially, what you know, the feedback that Joe was receiving, I think, is people get confused as to what are those different things, and we might as well simplify it. And so, essentially, if that's if that's the route, then the only real distinction between the two is the delegation of power thing, and that's easy to put on a charter if we need it there.
I mean, another very simple approach would simply be to add some text that says, if you're confused as to which one you should use a collaboration space, because anybody who's asking for formal delegation of authority probably knows enough to know they need a working group versus the other one. And if they're not asking for that, then it should just, you know, the collaboration space is the way to go. So like adding a couple lines that just says, you know, if you don't know, this is, you should be asking for a collaboration space.
Yeah.
I would opt more towards simplifying because I think it's intimidating for folks who want to start participating. And already, like, even our elevator pitches, well, we have a cross-project council, it's like a technical oversight committee, and we have this, and it's like a that, and then you start losing people, you know, so.
Yeah, which if you saying that could mean we shouldn't have collab spaces, we should have working groups because that's a concept everybody knows. But I agree that it would be good to simplify. I like the collaboration space. I kind of like the idea that it's I don't know if innovative is the right word, but it's like something new that we're
Progressive, yeah.
Yeah. So I
Welcoming, yeah.
I don't mind saying it's like a working group, but more.
I don't mind that, yeah. But then to say we have both, it just, you know.
Yeah.
I still want to mention, I hope that the, just looking at the task list, if the migration of stuff and the updating of documents is giving people pause as to whether or not to do this, that would be something that myself and Julian could help with. So once the decision is made, or if a decision is made.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh, that I think changes the conversation very
Well,
much.
I mean, look, if it's something that we should do, right, and then that's the blocker, like, yeah, we should do it, and Julian and I can help. With some guidance, of course, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. Great. I mean, I like the idea of quote unquote chartering collaboration spaces, at least to have like sort of a running list and what the sort of expectations are in one place that we would look, and that's how you part of the process of proposing a collab space. So I think that could be part of how we move forward. We kind of just convert everything to collab spaces. We have some sort of quote unquote charter and what the expectations are, but also make it clear that, any decisions and such should be brought to the CPC. So I'm in favor of moving forward on the simplified approach. I don't know how we all want to make a decision on this, or if we want to throw it in the issue and go from there and check back in 2 weeks or something.
Does anybody object to just simplifying?
If not here, I will just ask in the issue, are there any objections?
Yeah, I would like, no project wise, issues sometimes are like, people don't always see them. I tend to just like, hey, we had X people from the CPC here, nobody objected. Here's an email. If we don't hear any objections by Friday, we're just gonna do it, right? Like, just to give an end date in terms of feedback and maximize the chance people see it. And then just move forward, would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think that's a good,
Bring it up in our standards working group today as well.
okay. Like to, okay, so I just made a comment there, included the CPC group, and maybe this afternoon we can just shoot an email to the group and just say, this is what we're considering. Here's a link to the issue. Let us know if you have any objections, and then we can, make a plan. Cool. All right, great. Excellent. Let's move on. The next issue is 1106. This is the nonviolent communication strategic workplace conflict resolution training. Has been anything in the last month? I don't know.
I can give you a little update. The Linux Foundation is offering training for employees right now. I attended the first one last week on psychological safety. This Thursday is being an ally. Gloria Chance is the instructor. Really impressed. LF also made it, I think, optional, and I think the majority of employees attended. So that was pretty interesting. We had a pretty big number. It was spread across a couple of calls, and I was really impressed how people were really interactive in chat. So that was good. When you think about, can you do larger groups of people or smaller? So once I go through the second round, I've been taking notes. I'll summarize and then see what kind of an offering we can get for OpenJS, if that's something that we want to move forward on.
Should I put a comment in the issue that you'll follow up in?
Or I can do that.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. I'll
Awesome.
drop the link in the chat here.
Mhm.
Excellent, thank you. I hope it goes well, and I hope that we can take advantage of that. This next issue is 1105. This is, do charters which use the template need to include MIT? Jordan, you commented 5 days ago, Toby as well. Who wants to comment on this? And Ben too.
There are like 3 different things going on here.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben, for doing all of the back and forth.
This was a fascinating
between-
topic, so no problem. It's great.
Between the council and myself. And sorry, I think I was in a bad mood when I replied to the first email, so I want to apologize to this.
Yeah, our legal
here.
counsel was like, I don't want to talk to Toby anymore. That's it. It's over.
Well, that's fair. I mean, whatever. That's fine. I guess well deserved. I think the answer that Ben, like the other Ben that's not there today asked, I think like that has been settled. And essentially, if he just wants to use, I mean, anyone that's just using the existing template to do a charter doesn't have to use whatever license is in that repository and can pick whatever other license the bylaws accepts, and that's great. And so that question is fine, and we should just essentially. It's been answered and we should just close the issue. But then there's like sort of like this other thread that happened at the end, which is, would it make sense to have some kind of, default template repository for new projects in the foundation, which is sort of what Jordan was, suggesting. Do we want to have a conversation about this? Do we want to put that in a different issue? What do we want to do? I'd close the existing one as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I would say move it to a new issue if it's a new topic, and then we can close this one. Or at least ask Ben if he feels like it's been answered adequately.
I believe it has, yes.
And by Ben, I mean Ben Hutton in this instance.
Right.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I'll just offer my opinion whenever say Ben, that's fine.
Yeah,
My only comment was just clarifying something Toby said, right? Because new foundation projects are going to be pre-existing repos, so a template repo wouldn't serve any purpose. But creating an example project where it's like, or a couple different like tiny example projects that are like, here are some possible licenses you can use, and here's how you would express them, or I don't know, if there's in fact this confusion. I think it's very important that we, the foundation, have these answers. I think that if only one person has brought up the issue, it's much less important to go out of our way to document it, or provide examples. It's not zero important, but it's less important if it's almost never come up. But it's really good that we are then coming up with the answers because we need to have those. That's my general take on that.
Yeah, agreed. We should just close this.
okay. Toby, would you mind popping in there and just, tagging Ben Hutton, saying we're gonna close this, if you have any questions, reopen? That seem good?
Yes, whenever I can figure out how to log in to get on this machine again.
No, it's fine. I'll do it real quick.
I'm coming back from holidays. I don't want to do this.
Okay.
I will.
I got it.
Toby, you can only use that line for like a week.
I'm in Europe. I can use it for like at least a month.
There you go.
Cool. All right. Close with comment. Radical. Next on the agenda here is document process for organization billing. I know we had 2 working sessions last week, and one of them was on this, I believe, right, Ben?
Yeah, I can provide an update here. Claudio and myself, we did like a pair coding session to write a document, which was kind of fun using Visual Studio. So there's a draft. I think the next step on this one was Claudio was going to file a PR with the process outline. But basically at a high level, it just explains that a person who wants this for their project or for their GitHub organization essentially just needs to answer a couple questions. The CPC needs to review it. Once the CPC reviews it, then LF needs to review it to make sure that it's okay from a budget perspective. Made a couple notes in there saying that just because the CPC approves a request like this doesn't mean that we can actually fulfill it, right? It's budget dependent. And then just a little bit of documentation on, we feel comfortable in documenting what projects currently have this funding and their level of monthly spend, and putting that in GitHub as well.
Right.
And clarify this OpenJS approval, not LF approval.
Sorry, yes, OpenJS approval. Yes, it's OpenJS budget,
Our budget.
not LF budget. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. I dropped a comment in there. The next issue is enable payments for paid actions, large runners. That's not directly related, is it, Ben? That's different work?
Let me just pull this one up. Hang on a
I
second.
believe that's different work. I offlined with Sean Larkin about it, and I think he was cool waiting for Sovereign Tech Fund progress before continuing this path or question.
Okay.
Mhm.
So should we put a comment in this one, take off the agenda label? What should we do with this 1089 issue? Any thoughts?
You can comment that this could be part of Sovereign Tech Fund infrastructure work. Let's table this.
Okay.
Yeah,
If we table it, should I take the label off for now?
probably.
Okay. Great. Yeah, if you don't mind dropping a comment in there.
Okay.
Right on. This one is 1088, enable ability to have pseudonymity. I don't know how you say that word, for easy CLA. What do we think about this one? I know it could be challenging to implement something like
Just
that.
actually ran into this on the JavaScript spec. Somebody submitted some changes and they were merged, and then we realized they hadn't signed the form, which is basically like the CLA, and they didn't wish to. they didn't even want to give their name for privacy reasons. So we're ending up having to revert their changes. I tend to be of two minds about this sort of problem, which is one is privacy is important and critical, and like we shouldn't force people to give it up. And then the other is you're doing open source and standards work, and too bad. But like that's not obviously the foundation stance, just my personal stance. So like if there's an easy way to permit this, then great. Like more contributions the better, but also like just give up your name. It's not like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't heard a compelling argument other than principle for why someone needs to preserve any form of anonymity here.
Toby?
Yeah, I agree with what Jordan just said. Like there are two obviously important considerations here. One is privacy, and the other one obviously is like that the contribution is actually legally contributed, right? It turns out like W3C has managed to do this for like 3 decades now, or close to 3 decades, by essentially allowing contributions to be publicly anonymous, as long as the legal person behind the contribution is actually identified by the W3C's lawyer. And so you have an agreement that is not anonymous, that's between the foundation and the individual. And then you have, that allows the individual to use whatever handle they want to use. And that works fairly well. And there are, fairly good reasons for this to be possible. So I think if we want to do this, like there's, precedent of like how to do it, and it works fairly well. And, and so I think we should. That said, I think the question from the original person was that the CLA was asking for a bunch more stuff, like the home address and things like this, where like, I don't really, I don't really see why that's particularly necessary, and that's certainly not requested by the bylaws. It's sort of like an artifact of like the actual solution that we're using. So, yeah.
Sarah?
I think that's a great question about the address. No one knows the answer to that. I guess a question I have is how often are we seeing this? Because is there a world, like, and when we see it, are they significant contributors? Is there a world where there's someone else that could sponsor their contribution and is just happy to take it on themselves? That's already done the CLA. I guess the question would be also, a related question would be, what's the workload on the legal team going to be? I'm not sure if our legal team is full time, but is this something that we're going to be charged for? Those are a bunch of questions without answers, but I think could help add perspective.
I haven't seen it come up before. We had one case where someone on our projects on Open Collective was using a really random name. And when it just looked a little concerning, the project asked them to use their GitHub ID just for transparency. So that was fine. And yeah, we would be paying legal fees.
So has it been proven? Like, I would have guessed that part of wanting to have somebody sign the CLA is that like they're saying, yes, what I'm contributing this stuff. If we don't know who they are, does it? I guess what I'm asking to like Toby and people who've looked at it, like, has it been agreed that, well, we don't really need people's ID? We don't need to know who somebody is for the CLA to have value?
I'm sorry, I can it's a hard, like the distinction to make between the two things is like difficult for me to explain clearly. Essentially, as long as the legal entity that is the foundation knows who the person is,
okay, it doesn't have to
the
be
handle can stay opaque.
Sure. Okay.
Right. Like what matters is that the foundation can know who the person is. right? That's what matters. Like whether the public knows who the person is doesn't, as long as the public knows that that handle has been, certified, verified by the foundation. So that's one aspect, and I think that's perfectly handled. Now, the other aspect is like, how much information does the foundation actually need to be able to determine the identity of a person? And my understanding from looking at the bylaws is there is no specific requirements in the in the IP policy, that there's no specific requirement around this, and that it turns out that the solution that we're using asks for this information. But other solutions, essentially, for example, like the other one that's CLA Assistant or whatever it's called, just uses the GitHub handle and sort of like punts
Sure.
sort of like the identification to GitHub rather than like owning it itself.
Okay, got it. Yeah, your first part answers
So-
my question.
My suspicion is that this is actually two different concerns, neither of which have ever really been decided in courts. One is, have the initial rights been assigned for the contributions? And that might take very little, right? Like just if the GitHub account is making the contribution, the GitHub account has said, yes, like I do it, maybe that's sufficient. I mean, a lawyer would have to weigh in, but I think the second piece is if you have to relicense or get a hold of the person in some way, I suspect there's some legal paranoia about only having the GitHub username as a way to do that. And that's why they want all the ways to contact you: mailing address, phone, email, all that stuff. That's my guess.
So why don't I check with our legal folks on that part? We already sort of talked about the other part about knowing who the person is. That was made in our trademark update around crowdfunding. And really the spirit of that legal clause is you should know where your money is going and where it's coming from, is really kind of the spirit of that, spirit of the law. But let me have Andy and team weigh in on the other piece.
Yeah, that's KYC. Like there's a lot more unnecessary sending money over. There's a lot more requirements because of
Right.
whitewashing, whatever it's called in English.
Mhm.
Not whitewashing.
I'm mindful of time. We have 10 minutes left. What do we do about this issue?
I'll run it by our legal and ask.
Okay, great.
I'm sure it's been deliberated on the CLA.
Okay.
Mhm.
If you can leave some sort of comment, that's always helpful. We have a few issues left that I'm going to skip over. I think some of them, we need to just kind of move forward on. So if you can take a look at them, that'd be great. One of them in particular is the JSON schema charter that I want to, just make sure that folks are aware of. I see on the actual JSON schema org PR that Ben Hutton made some changes 4 hours ago. So I think this is, ready for folks to take another look. So that'd be great. Toby, your hand up.
Yeah, no, I did have a look. It's like it's really good at this point. There are like a few typos, but there's been a whole bunch of work in there, and I think it's worth folks having a look. And it's much more ready than it was.
Great, thank you. I appreciate you digging into that. Really do. One thing I just want to ask really quickly though is the working session next week. Anybody have any thoughts what we should work on? Or I mean, we could continue on the code of conduct stuff and just keep moving that forward. We could hack on the collab space working group stuff. We could also just decide in Slack in the next day or two and have a plan for next week. Whatever's fine with me. I also like the idea of multiple working groups. So, whatever.
Maybe not next week, but soon. Kylie's going to be leading kind of a blank sheet of paper. What are we going to do for our event strategy next year? So might be a little bit early next week, but maybe a couple weeks after. We'll take
yeah,
it to
we could-
the program committee, but I think beyond program, I think we'll get feedback from all of our stakeholders.
Okay, yeah, it might be good to drop in an issue too. I don't know how much you want to open it up, but let me know if you want me to, or if you want to yourself drop it into the schedule of
Oh, yeah, I can do that. I'll do it not for next, but the 2 weeks after.
Okay, and then I'll just plan to do COC work next week. Folks can join in that or pick up any other work that they want to jump in, and we can do that.
Well,
Cool. Let's call this meeting a wrap and say goodbye to folks on the stream and anyone who's not a regular member, which I think everybody here is cool. I mean, like really cool. And we can jump into a private session and then get on with our days. So thanks everybody. Appreciate on the stream and all that stuff.